Welcome to the John Marshall High School Exploring Woodworking Training Series.
The table saw.
The table saw cuts angles, rabbets and dados, and rips stock. It is a type of circular saw because it has a round blade. When properly used, it will make accurate, straight cuts. This is one of the most universal tools in the wood shop. The table saw can do many specialty cuts. It can cut bevels, angles, and many types of joints. Cross-cutting can also be done with the use of the miter gauge. The table saw is used by building contractors, carpenters, cabinet makers, and many other woodworkers. Both the home hobbyist and the person building woodworking projects find the table saw to be one of the most useful machines for the home shop or garage. Many times it is the first stationary machine purchased. The table saw is housed in the body. The work area is called the table. Power is controlled by the safety switch. The cutting part is the circular saw blade. Your fingers are protected from the blade by the blade guard. The blade height is adjusted with the front hand wheel. Blade tilt angle is adjusted with the side hand wheel. The fence guides the stock when making lengthwise rip cuts. Cross-cutting of small stock is done with the miter gauge. Adjustments on the table saw. When setting up the table saw for any sawing job, see that the saw blade revolves freely, that it is securely fastened to the arbor or shaft, and that the screws or clamps on the fence are tightened. Use the splitter guard, saw guard, or a push stick, or any other safety device for all operations whenever they can be used. Keep the saw blade sharp and properly set. It is very dangerous to work with dull and insufficiently set tools. Always stop the machine before making any adjustments. Keep the floor around the table saw in good condition, clean and free from scraps, sawdust, oil, or grease, so that there will be no danger of slipping. Do not look around or carry on a conversation while operating the table saw. Instead, give the table saw your undivided and uninterrupted attention. Stock to be sawed must always be held against the ripping fence or the miter gauge. Never try to saw freehand, that is, without holding the stock against a fence. The stock must have a straight, true edge and lie flat on the table. Stock that has a rough, uneven edge should not be worked on the table saw. Do not use stock that is warped or twisted. The saw blade must not project more than 1/8 of an inch above the stock to be sawed. To avoid being in line with the saw blade, stand to the left of the blade. The operator is also responsible to see that others avoid the line of the blade. Do not reach over the saw blade. Have a helper or tail person to assist in handling long or bulky material. Use a clearance block when cross-cutting shorter pieces. Never use the ripping fence as a stop when cross-cutting. It may cause kickback, which is just as it sounds, the blade kicking the stock back towards you. Roll up your sleeves or wear a shop coat with tight sleeves. Don't wear any loose clothing or jewelry such as a necktie or a necklace. Both may cause an accident. After turning off the power, remain at the table saw until the blade comes to a complete stop. Lower the blade, remove the stock from the saw table. Clean up the area and cover the blade with the guard. Operating procedures. Set up the saw properly for the job you are going to perform. Ripping. Set the fence at a proper distance from the rip blade. Cross-cutting. Use the miter gauge and combination of cross-cut blades. Angle cutting. Set the miter gauge or blade angles correctly for the cut to be made. Place the guard in the proper position. Saw blade teeth should always point toward the operator and should extend approximately 1/8 of an inch above the material to be cut. Secure approval of your instructor before continuing. After observing proper safety procedures, turn on the saw. Place the stock on the table and feed steadily into the blade. Use either the fence or miter gauge. No freehand cuts are allowed on this machine. Keep a 4-inch margin of safety for your fingers. When ripping closer than 4 inches, use a push stick. When cross-cutting, use a different machine. Observe all safety procedures. When ripping, always push the material all the way past the blade and let it drop, unless a helper or talesperson is off-bearing or assisting. The talesperson should only keep the stock from falling, not pulling the stock through the blade. If the talesperson helps in guiding the stock through, it may cause a serious accident. The operator is responsible to instruct the helper who is aiding in the machine's operation. Congratulations! You are now ready to take the table saw online safety test.